So I just queued this up to go live on Facebook, and this is what I'm going to be calling and talking about is through this series, this educational series of how we get to become extremely wealthy, how do I get to where I'm at, from where I'm at to where I want to go? This is always a question that, a lot of people ask themselves, and, how do I get to that next step? How do I get to the next level? Well, if you see it live on Facebook, here, flashcards. These happen to be Napoleon Hill flashcards, actually. But I'm going to go through some of those cards. I've got a host of information here for that as I go through this, as I personally work through my certification through the Napoleon Hill Foundation to be a certified trainer. But I'm going to start this today and start talking about throughout this whole series, throughout the rest of the year, how you can get to that next level, how you can get control of the faculties of your mind. And it all started with this book, The Law of Success. So I'm going to be showing you a bunch of different books here this morning. I'm going to show you a bunch of different books, a bunch of different steps that I have to go through to make this work, make my mind work in the way that I want it to work, and demand the success that I demand. That's sort of what the series is going to be about. It's going to be about how do I get from start to finish. Napoleon spent 20 plus years studying success. Not only did he study success, y'all, but he studied failure as well. So I got two books that I work out of a lot, and that's this book, The Law of Success, and then I've got here this book. Napoleon talks about compensation, right? And what we deserve to get, what we deserve to have. And so I have this other book, and this is Emerson's first and second essay series. This is Emerson's first and second essay series. And one thing about this book and his Law of Compensation series, it really breaks things down to where, I don't feel so entitled to get things that I haven't mentally acquired. And that's the challenge for me, and the challenge for all of us is to get to that next level, get to that next place, get to that next step. And how do I get there? And my goal has always been, since the beginning, is to be the top salesperson. In order to be the top salesperson, you have to be able to control the faculties of your mind. You have to be able to go that extra distance. You have to be able to go someplace that you've not been able to go before. Yes, we are here, Steve.
Okay.
So the whole idea.
Google Hangouts. This is why I wanted to make sure.
Okay, no worries. Okay, all right, good enough. Okay, so we're starting this series, you guys. Okay, go ahead and put it on mute. Thank you. The whole idea behind the work that we do, the work that we do, there's lots of ways. Well, I shouldn't say there's only one way. There's only one truth. but there's lots of ideas that people have about success and how to become successful. And that's good because it creates variety, you know. I mean, I think the way that we describe this, the human mind, is that, you know, in terms of thought, is that thought is the power of the universe operating through its creature man. So thought being the power of the universe operating through its creature man. And that gives us the ability to do some things that sometimes we are not aware that we can do. We can take the control of the faculties of our mind, but success and being wealthy in body and spirit and mind, it doesn't come because that's something that we want. It comes out of demand. And in order to get that demand, get my mind to think in terms of that demand, I have to do some things. And this happens on a regular basis, right? Because, excuse me, it doesn't matter if I just want something. I have to be able to train, and I mean this through years and years of education. I have to be able to train my mind to focus on the things that I want. Some of the cards that I have here, I say flashcards. These are Napoleon's flashcards. Here's one: abundance. Before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our mind with intense desire for riches. We must become money conscious until the desire for money drives us to create definite plans for acquiring it. Now, there's 54 of these cards, right? There's 54 of them, but I'm going to flip through them real quick, and I'm going to pick out some of my favorites. One sound idea. One sound idea is all that's needed to achieve success. That's in one of the cards. He says, blessings in disguise. Adversaries and temporary defeat are generally blessings in disguise, for the reason that they force one to use both imagination and decision. This is why a man usually makes a better fight when his back is to the wall and he knows there is no retreat. This is one of my favorites, and I'm going to tell you why. And I study these cards to memorize them, just because I know that if I can retain more information, because I know that I have the ability to remember more than I could ever learn. So that takes constant training of my mind, constant training. I know most of these I know by heart, but I'll just flip through them. Oh, here's one: adapt. Right? You are trying to adapt yourself to nature's laws by endeavoring to convert desire into physical or monetary equivalent. You can do it. It has been done before. That's one of my favorites. Powerful and mighty. Here's another one of my favorites. Powerful and mighty is the human mind. It builds or it destroys. And we're going to get into a lot of the state of mind. All right, here's a good one. Potential power. Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when and if it is organized into definite plans of action and directed toward a definite end. Now, there's a good one. That's a real good one, because how do you do that? How do you get that? Oh, my favorite of all time, right here. This is my favorite card of all time. Goals. Okay? And goals. He says, goals. If you give up before your goal has been reached, you are a quitter. A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits. That's one of my favorite. These cards go on and on, but here's why I study the cards. I study the cards so I can keep increasing. You know, like Zig Ziglar says, you may get out of school, but you never stop educating yourself. So in order to achieve this idea of controlling the faculties of my mind, I must be willing to do things. And the things that I have to do are not always what they seem like I have to do. Let's take, for example, a boxer or a UFC fighter. And these people are training their body to become the highest level of athletics, right? So what do? They work out in the gym in terms of weightlifting, right? And that weightlifting, they do that for strength. They run, they do that for endurance. They use the speed bag, for example, for boxers. They do that for speed. They do sit-ups, for example, to strengthen the stomach muscles. In other words, what they're trying to do is they're trying to strengthen all of their entire body and mind. And they have to overcome those physical objections that their mind is telling them, hey, stop, you're tired, you've had enough, you've worked out extremely, this arm is sore, this leg is sore, or your lungs are, burning from lack of oxygen, because you've run so many miles. Well, all of this training processes, they do to get to complete the overall rejection. And this is what we have to do in our minds. We're always training, whether it be I'm training to give a speech, whether it be I'm training to memorize information or learn information, even more importantly. I'm training, I want to become the top salesperson. So does that mean that I just go out every day and sell? Or is there some other things that I have to do? Well, I'm here to tell you, in order to control the faculties of your mind and to gain the faculties of your mind, there's some other things that you have to do. Number one, you're going to have to do a lot of reading because this is what's going to counteract the information that you're getting from the outside world. Because the outside world is giving you information that is contrary to truth. And it's very difficult to think in terms of truth when what you see is opposite of truth. It's very difficult to do that. So you have to train your mind and to be able to focus on the things that you desire 100% and all the time. So one of the tools and one of the techniques that we have, and it just ended the 3rd season of the Masterkey system, which is a 6-month course that incorporates this book, the Masterkey system, which is a part of my training. The Masterkey system. This book was written by Charles Haanel. Now, Charles Haanel, this book was published in 1910, and as you know, this book, The Law of Success, was published in 1925. Now, what Carnegie did, I read it to some people on yesterday, but here it's going live now on Facebook, you're streaming. But this book is one of the books that Napoleon was handed down by his mentor, Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie had gone through a lot of people, and he had wanted to find out if who he could elicit to bring about his desire to create a philosophy. And his desire was to create a philosophy for the man of the street, to gain a know-how of a man like Carnegie over a lifetime of achievement. And once I finish parading all these books in front of you, you're going to see why it is true that this information has been codified and it is explained, and I have learned it in levels and in stages. I am at level 7. That's the level that I'm at. The levels go up to level 12, and I personally am at level 7. So Carnegie, he wanted to create a philosophy for the man in the street, just an ordinary guy. So he created this philosophy, but in creating and wanting to achieve the creation of this philosophy, what he did was he talked to many people trying to figure out who he could commission. Remember, Carnegie was the wealthiest man on the planet here at the turn of the century. He was the wealthiest man on the planet. So he wanted to figure out, he needed somebody to create this philosophy. So he had called on several different people, but he ended up talking to a young writer by the name of Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill was at Georgetown University, him and his brother, and he wanted to be able to write articles about wealthy people so that he could publish these articles and put them in a newspaper or put them in magazines. And if you know, he ended up being the editor-in-chief of his own magazine called The Golden Rule years later. But Carnegie had a stopwatch under the desk, and he's asking Napoleon to create a philosophy. And Napoleon says, I didn't even know what the word philosophy meant. But he wanted him to create a philosophy for the man of the street to gain the know-how of a man like himself. So he asked Napoleon, he says, I want you to create a philosophy, and I'm going to give you letters of introduction to the wealthiest people on the planet. They're not going to know what you're doing, but I'm going to want you to study them and create a philosophy so that anybody could pick up the book, read it, and learn the secrets to success. The secrets that they don't want you to know about. The secrets of organizations like the Brotherhood or the Illuminati or Skull and Bones or some of the private secret societies as we know them as. They're not so secret. I mean, you know about them. But he wanted these secrets to be revealed. He wanted to know if there were some similarities between himself and ordinary people. And if he could take an ordinary person like he did himself from rags to riches. You know, Carnegie went from rags to riches. He's a self-made millionaire or billionaire, if you will. I mean, no one can amass the amount of money today with the antitrust laws around the world and the global economy that Carnegie amassed in the early 1900s as being the owner of U.S. Steel. So he commissioned Napoleon. Napoleon ultimately told him yes, even though he was a little frightened because of his youth, because of his lack of experience, that Andrew Carnegie was picking the right person for this, to bring the world a philosophy of success, a philosophy of how to go from rags to riches. Napoleon didn't think that he was the person to do it, but as we know now, he's made millionaires of scores of men who have followed his philosophy. And this is the key. But in order to do so, there are some things that I've learned that you can't just read the book. You can't, it's not enough to read the book. And we will get into and explain why it's not enough. I didn't know. I read the book and I wasn't able, just by the first reading of the book, to achieve some of the goals that I was attempting to achieve. It took much longer. It took much greater effort. And it's taken years and years and years of greater understanding of the principles, and not just the principles, because the only benefit of any principle is in the application of the principle. So this book right here, the Masterkey System, this is Napoleon's, one of his other mentors. And so this book, the Masterkey System, here's what he wrote to Charles Honnell. He says, "Dear Mr. Honnell, you probably know from the editorial in the January issue of the Golden Rule," and the Golden Rule where he's the editor-in-chief. The copy which my secretary sent to you that I began 20 years ago as a coal miner at $1 a day. I have just been retained by a $10 million corporation at a salary of $105,200 a year for a portion of my time only. It having been agreed that I shall continue as editor of the Hill's Golden Rule. So he got $105,000 plus to work part-time. I believe in giving credit where it is due. Therefore, I believe I ought to inform you that my present success, which has followed my work as president of the Napoleon Hill Institute, is due largely to the principle laid down in the Masterkey system. You are doing a good work by helping people to realize that nothing is impossible of accomplishment which a man can create in his imagination. Now that's powerful. So I'm going to read that again, because Napoleon is like, look, you are doing a great work by helping people to realize that nothing is impossible of accomplishment when a man can create in his imagination. Surely my own experience proves that I shall cooperate with you in getting your course into the hands of many who are greatly need the message. And that was this book. Now, this is a 26-week course, okay? It's a 26-week course. It's the Masterkey system. And that's the course that, in conjunction with the Law of Success, this book, that I'm going to be going through with those who want to achieve much greater success, because it's going to show you how to control the faculties of your mind. So you have the Masterkey system, which is where it started. Then you have the Law of Success, which is Napoleon Hill. And then, of course, what ties it all together is Emerson and his law on compensation. And this is where you realize that you cannot get nothing in this world for nothing. Nothing leaves nothing. So we have that. Also we have this book. This is The Science of Getting Rich. And this is by Wallace D. Wattles. This is The Science of Getting Rich. Now, these three books work hand in hand. We've been using them in the Masterkey system. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to control the faculties, learn the principles, first of all, and then apply the principles. Because Carnegie said, Hanel says it, Wattles says it, Hill says it, Emerson says it, that the value of any principle is in the application. And that means that I've got to do something. I've got to put it to work. So here's one of the applications. So we have these flashcards, right? And so we have a way of introducing information into our minds each morning, and all throughout the day. Why? Because we're bombarded with negativity. We're bombarded with information that does not correspond, or information that does not allow me to get what I want. And in other words, it's not favorable information. So what we do with these cards is I've got this stack of flashcards here, and if you can see it on Facebook Live, you'll see it, but I've got this stack of cards. And these cards they're either things that I want or things that I've done. And what we do is we put a symbol, a triangle, a rectangle, a square, a circle at the end of each statement, right? And the reason being is because now when I read this card, I got a tax ID for MPZ Global. That was and this one's years ago. I still have this card and I read it. And I've got the symbol. So now when I see the symbol subliminally, my subconscious automatically picks it up. And it automatically thinks I got a tax ID for MPZ Global. Here's another one. I promise to repeat, do it now, 25 times a day, right? There's so many of these cards here that I have. In him we live and move and have our being. There's another card. So what these cards do is they bring to us the application. They bring the application. This is a part of the application, just like when we do sits every day, right? We sit for 30 minutes a day. And sit and meditate and think about the person I intend to be. So this is part of the application. Read flashcards. These are part of the application of the success formula, that you read the philosophy, but what do I need to do to make it become real for me? It's in the application of the work. Okay, so that's why we went through the 26-week course. Okay, let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to 1936. And remember, this was during the Great Depression, and Napoleon had already written the Law of Success. He wrote another book. Now, this Law of Success was used by the President Roosevelt at the time, houses of Congress, both houses of Congress, the pastors, the ministers, the clergymen, the radio people, the television people, the newspaper people. And you might ask yourself, why? Well, if you remember, that was during the Great Depression. And the U.S. economy had tanked, and there were a lot of people that were running around, jumping off buildings, killing themselves. They were broke. People went from having millions of dollars to broke in a matter of minutes as the stock market crashed. So Napoleon, in conjunction with the president, created the greatest mastermind that the U.S. has never known, because at this time, when you had both houses of Congress working in conjunction, the president, all on the same page, the newspapers, the teachers, the radio, the ministers, the clergymen, everybody on the same page, because what happened during that time? The U.S. people were desperate. They were riddled with fear. They were eaten up with fear, and what's going to happen? And everybody's in the same boat. Napoleon talks about having a $1,000 bill that wasn't worth anything because nobody could cash it. Nobody could use it. So then he wrote this book, Think and Grow Rich. He wrote Think and Grow Rich, and this is it's somewhat of the next generation, but really it's a watered down version of the Law of Success. It's the watered down version. But these are the principles. The Law of Success has 17 principles in it that you must learn, and you must learn to apply. So you have to be able to recognize, relate to the information, recognize the information, relate to the information, assimilate the information, and ultimately apply the information. And these are the principles. And this is not easy to do when you are, maybe, for example, you're trying to learn how to start a sales cycle and learn how to achieve a sales cycle. It's not easy, right? Because of the old blueprint, the way that things have always been, the way that I used to be. This is the challenge that I have to go through each and every day to overcome my own objections. And where are they at? They're in my mind. This is why you have to read books every day. It's going to counteract the negative information that you're going to receive. Anyway, back to fast forward. This book was published in 1937, Think and Grow Rich. And this is a landmark bestseller. And it's written in many different languages. But this is a workbook. It is a book of participation. It is a book that if you work through it in a mastermind group, you're going to learn, you're going to be able to learn some ideas and principles and apply them that you've never been able to do. Napoleon says, and the thesis for the book is a statement that he made, that he says, I know I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, aggressive, and continuous action towards its attainment. Second, I realize the dominating thoughts of my mind will gradually reproduce themselves into outward bodily action and eventually transform themselves into reality. Therefore, I will spend 30 minutes a day on the task of thinking of the person I intend to be, creating a mental image of that person, and transforming that image into reality. Third, I know through the principle of autosuggestion that any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will seek expression through some practical means of realizing it. Therefore, I will spend 10 minutes a day demanding of myself the development of the factors named in this reading course, The Law of Success, Think and Grow Rich. Fourth, I have clearly mapped out a written description of my definite purpose for the coming 5 years. I have set a price for each of the years, a price I intend to earn and receive through the strict application of efficient, satisfactory service, which I will render in advance. Fifth, I fully realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. Therefore, I shall engage in no activity that does not benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to me the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because I will first serve them. I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing love for all humanity, because I know that a negative attitude toward others can never bring me success. I will cause others to believe in me because I will believe in them and in myself. I will sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory, say it out loud once a day with the full faith and belief that it will gradually influence my entire life and I will become a happy and successful worker of my chosen field of endeavor. Mark Perry. Now, this is the statement that he makes, that he encourages everyone to memorize it, because in each one of those paragraphs, you got a tremendous lesson on the science of achievement. And then as you go through the lessons, you will be able to recognize these things because success is in plain view. You just have to be able to recognize the principles and apply the principles to your life. These 3 books, 4 books, you've got the Masterkey System, published first. Then you have The Science of Getting Rich, published second. Then you have the Law of Success, which is based on a 25-year study, which validated the principles in the Masterkey System and the principles in The Science of Getting Rich. These principles were validated by Napoleon through his study of 500 of the wealthiest people on the planet at that time. And then the 4th book here, on the 5th book, you've got the Masterkey System, The Science of Getting Rich. So we have this one first, the Masterkey System. We have The Science of Getting Rich, published second. Then we have the Law of Success, published the 3rd publication on the system. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about principles that have been revealed from secret societies on how the planet works, how the universe works, how you can gain success and achieve success in a short period of time. Okay? All right, and then we fast forward to what? 1937, and this was published, Think and Grow Rich. Now, this is the landmark book right here, Think and Grow Rich, even though it's backed by the Law of Success. This is the #1 bestseller, New York Times bestseller for in multiple different languages, multiple different countries. But Think and Grow Rich has been this landmark. And let me just read you just the very beginning, the introduction from what Napoleon says here. He says that in every chapter of this book, mention has been made of the money-making secret which made fortunes for more than 500 exceedingly wealthy men. I have carefully analyzed over a long period of years. The secret was brought to my attention by Andrew Carnegie more than a quarter century ago. The canny, lovable old Scotsman carelessly tossed it into my mind when I was but a boy. Then he sat back in his chair with a merry twinkle in his eye and watched carefully to see if I had brains enough to understand the full significance of what he had said to me. When he saw that I had grasped the idea, he asked if I would be willing to spend 20 years or more preparing myself to take it to the world, to men and women who, without the secret, might go through life as failures. I said I would, and Mr. Carnegie's cooperation, I have kept my promise. With Mr. Carnegie's cooperation, Napoleon kept his promise. This book contains the secrets after having been put to a practical test by thousands of people in almost every walk of life. Mr. Carnegie's idea that the magic formula which gave him a stupendous fortune ought to be placed within reach of people who did not have time to investigate how men make money. And that's where we come to. I come to a lot. I find that people don't have time to investigate how people make money. They're just out there trying to do it, even though they may be struggling. And it was his hope that I might test and demonstrate the soundness of the formula through the experience of men and women in every calling. He believed the formula should be taught in public schools and colleges and express the opinions that if it were properly taught, it would so revolutionize the entire educational system that time spent in school could be reduced to less than half. His experience with Charles M. Schwab and other young men of Mr. Schwab's type convinced Mr. Carnegie that much of that which is taught in schools is of no value whatsoever in connection with the business of earning a living or accumulating riches. He had arrived at this decision because he had taken into his business one young man after another, many of them with but little schooling, and by coaching them in the use of this formula, developed in them the rare leadership. Moreover, his coaching made fortunes for every one of them who followed his instructions. That was amazing, and that's why they called the work the Law of Success, because when they taught it to people, these people, every single one of them, and the first big victory came when it was used as the basis of a course, in which 3,000 men and women were taught the philosophy, and in a period of 6 months, all of them, not 99% of them, not 98% of them, all of them earned $1 million in 6 months. Every single one of them earned $1 million in a period of about 6 months. Amazing. for all whom are ready for it. This single application of The Secret by the young man, Charles M. Schwab, made him a huge fortune in both money and opportunity. Roughly speaking, this particular application of the formula was worth $600 million. Now that, to me, is impressive. These facts, and they are facts, well known to almost everyone who knew Mr. Carnegie, give you a fair idea of what the reading of this book may bring you, provided you know what it is that you want. Even before it had been undergone the 20 years of practical testing, The Secret was passed on to more than 100,000 men and women who have used it for their personal benefit, as Mr. Carnegie planned that they should. Some have made fortunes with it, others have used it successfully in creating harmony in their homes. I can tell you that I have used the formula, and that is a huge landmark book that has made millionaires out of lots of people. And you as well can become one by studying these principles and applying these principles. Okay, so that's kind of that's the format that we'll be going through, and as we go through the principles and go through the levels and then stages. Now, what I'm doing is getting my certification through the Napoleon Hill Foundation, y'all, to be able to bring this to the people and be a certified representative to do so. All right, let's fast forward to 2010. We have another, in 2010, an organization called the Global Information Network put out this series of audios. And you can see it, I'm holding it here in my hand. The series of audios, this is called Your Wish is Your Command. And in this series, they bring to light the principles in a talking version, audio version, a conversational version, the principles that are unfold in this book, Think and Grow Rich. So Your Wish is Your Command is the audio version of Think and Grow Rich. Now, why is the audio version important? The audio version is important. This is important because it will allow you to get the principles through listening. Now, your brain will pick up this information by reading it, obviously, and by studying it, and by masterminding with it. And then you have the ability to, the privilege of having it spoken to you by a member of one of these societies that experienced the growth at an early age, youth, through levels and in stages. And that's what happened. They experienced this growth through levels and stages. And that's how this guy was able to bring this information to you. Because this guy made $1 million when he was still in high school, and his name is Kevin Trudell. And he made $1 million using these principles, and he was still in high school. I have the privilege of not only having the audio version of The Law of Success, but I also have the manuscripts, and these are the manuscripts for the principles. And these are the manuscripts, the written manuscripts of the audio version. These are the manuscripts of the audio version of Your Wish is Your Command. And so reading it and studying it and going through the levels. Now, the Global Information Network created the course, and the course is called the Success Mastery Course. Okay? Now, this course is where they took the information, codified it in levels and in stages, so that the information can be administered and applied. So if you don't get the first levels under command, you're never going to reach the next levels. One of the things for me that happened was amazing and astonishing. I'll share this with you. When I started the level 1 training and went through the level 1 training and the level 1 training is about 56 hours of training. It might be a little bit more, somewhere between 56 and 60 or 65 hours of actual audio training. So I went through that training at least 3 times in its entirety. And, it took, maybe a month. I don't know. I think I spent nearly 5 months on, maybe 5 to 6 months, just on the level 1 training. So half a year has gone by where I started studying the level 1 training. When I got to the level 2 training, which I had to pass the test for the level 1 training, and there's about 600 multiple choice questions, and there's about 600 fill in the blank questions. So the test took 3 hours, 4 hours to sit down and take this test. And I passed the test and moved on to the level 2 training. The level 2 training amazed me because there was information in the level 2 training that was in the level 1 training that I did not see. I did not pick it up. I wasn't aware of it, even though when I went back to the level 1 training, the information was clearly there, and I heard it, and I heard it more than once without my brain recognizing it. There was not a recognizable synopsis in my brain to recognize what I had heard. Now, I've heard this principle before. I didn't know about it. I didn't know that there are things that are in plain view that I could see or hear that my brain, having no experience dealing with it, is able to receive it. Now that blew my mind, blew me away. When I went back to level 1 training and identified aspects of level 2 training that were already there, that I wasn't even able to recognize. There wasn't a match. My brain never picked it up. It was right there. It was in plain view. I heard it, but my brain never picked it up. That is, my friends, is when I knew there was secrets to success that I needed to be mentored and taught. That's when I recognized that there were secrets to success, that in order for me to achieve a greater level of success, that I needed to be mentored and taught in order to see some things that were in plain view. And my mentor told me, he said, Mark, you know what? My mentor told me that if you want to hide something where no one ever finds it, place it in plain view. And that's what I have discovered, that the elite people on the planet have put principles of success in plain view of the masses, and they cannot see it, they cannot receive it, they cannot benefit from the information because they're not aware. Now, Napoleon clearly wrote this out in his book, in The Law of Success. Carnegie knew the principles because Carnegie was a member of the Brotherhood. one of the pinnacle secret societies, along with the Skull and Bones and Illuminati and the Freemasons. This blew me away. How could I have not picked this information up? Well, it didn't stop there. The exact same thing happened in level 3 training. In level 3 training, I went back to level 2 training and discovered that the information, I had heard it already in level 2 training. Wait a minute. I went back to level 1 only to discover that the information in level 3 training was in level 1 training. I wasn't able to pick it up or recognize it because I had no matching source in which to do so. This is when I knew I needed a mentor to guide me through success principles. So level 1 training is I had to come to the cognition that I could have, be, and do anything that I wanted. I had to believe it. I had to recognize it. I had to come to the cognition to know that this is a fact, y'all. This is a fact. I had to come to that cognition. Level 1 training is come to the cognition. Get to the point where you really believe that you can do anything you want, you can have anything you want, and you could be anything you want. Now that's why we're put here on the planet. You have this desire, and the fact that you have the desire should inform you that you can achieve it. Otherwise, you would not have it. That's something that I had to learn. I had to realize that. I had to come to recognize that if I had a desire, that was planted there by infinite intelligence, and that if I had that desire, I absolutely had the ability to achieve it. Otherwise, I would not have the desire. Groundbreaking for me, y'all. So level 1 is I come to the cognition that I can have, be, and do whatever I want. And that takes some time. That took some time. It took about a year, maybe 2 years for me to actually get to that level, to where I knew I could do it. It took some time. It didn't happen overnight. Level 2 training is creation, where I discover through the law of attraction, obviously, that I don't attract things, I create them. How? By thinking about them. It's a vibration. It puts out a signal. My brain puts out a signal, and a matching vibration will correlate with that signal and bring it into manifestation. If my desire is in harmony with the forward movement of the great whole, then forces will be put into place that will bring about the results. 50-cent definition of the law of attraction. Or brain, mind, thought is creative energy. Thought is creative energy and will automatically correlate with its object and bring it into manifestation. It's a law. It's a universal truth. It's the thoughts are things, are energy. Thought is the power of the universe, the power of infinite intelligence operating through its creature man. The soul has one responsibility, and that's thinking. That's it. That's all my soul can do, is think. And as long as those thoughts are in harmony with my desire, and I continue to focus on it, then I can bring it into manifestation. I can create it. And that's powerful when you realize that. So level 1 is I come to the cognition that I can do it. I can do anything I want. Level 2 is I learn that I'm creating things. And here's the statement that I come up with. I didn't come up with it. It's through Jerry and Esther Hicks. And the question is, how do I bring myself into vibrational alignment with my goals, dreams, and desires that my experience has presented? How do I bring myself in vibrational alignment with my goals, dreams, and desires that my experience has presented? Easy. Easier said than done, but I deliberately choose thoughts that make me feel good while I'm thinking about them. And that's the level 2 training. How to create. Well, guess what? Once I start to create, I have blocks. Things stop me. Things stop me from getting what I want. So the level 3 training is eliminating stops. Stop programs. For example, if I say that I'm going to come home tonight and after work today, and I'm going to read a lesson in Think and Grow Rich, for example. So I go through my day, I have all the intentions of doing it, and then when I get home, I don't do it. Why not? What stopped me? What stopped me from following through on a commitment that I already had? Why didn't I follow through? Well, we call them stop programs. There are a lot of them out there. Some of them you're born with. You're not actually born with them, but you grew up with because of your parents. They might have placed them in your mind and you believe that that's the way it is, so it doesn't work for you. It may have came from your educators. It may have even come from yourself. A lot of ideas that I grew up with don't serve me today. They're stop programs. And one of the number 1 stop programs for me has been broken agreements. Broken promises. Broken agreements has been the number 1 stop program that has stopped me from getting the things that I've wanted faster. And I recognize that only through the training. So level 1, I had to come to the cognition that I could have, be, and do whatever I want. Level 2, I had to learn how to create by focusing on my thoughts on the things that I wanted rather than the things that I didn't want. Level 3 is now that I'm trying to create things, what's stopping me from doing it? Level 4 is levels 1, 2, and 3 training, all combined. Repetition, 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 repetition. Questions, answers, questions, answers, questions, answers, questions, answers, questions, answers, questions, answers, questions, answers. About 4,000 questions and answers. When I was able to answer these questions right off the top of my head, just like I know my own name. That's why I have the flashcards, right? So when I go through the flashcards, I can put the flashcards up. So I have the flashcards, right? And I can put the flashcard up, and I can have I can know that it says complete control, and I know that it says that every human has the ability to completely control the faculties of their mind. Every human has the ability to completely control the faculties of their mind. So if I flash through the cards, complete control, the offspring of thought, perfection, open-mindedness, the starting point, one sound idea, and just go through all these flashcards, I should know right off the top of my head what the answer is. I should know right off the top of my head. I should know the answer just like I know my own name. Now I'm able, since I know these things, I know that the basics. Who do I listen to? How teachable am I to the information that I'm listening to? Am I on the right side of the training balance scale? And am I familiar with the 4 steps of learning? Unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetent, conscious competent, and unconscious competent. And I go through those stages of the way the brain processes information, and I realize that I can filter everything through some basic information in order to achieve my goals, dreams, and desires. And that's what those tests were able to help me do. Because it got me to focus on truth. Truth. That's what I've been wanting to focus on all along, is truth. And that's one of the things that I find that stops people from becoming extremely and highly successful, and that is truth. Because it's very challenging to focus on the truth when what appears before you seems like it's the real truth, but it's not. Because the real truth is that you should be happy all the time, and you should be able to have, be, and do whatever you want to. And that is why we are able to grow by reading the lectures, working through the information, and preparing ourselves for each day. And this preparation actually starts the night before, but we'll get into that. So I have one more thing in this introduction, and this is the course that it's going to be available on the website. It's going to be available on the MIT website, mitrecruitinggroup.com. And it's called Creating My Life Vibrationally. Creating My Life Vibrationally is a 15-week intensive self-development course in conjunction with the principles of Napoleon Hill for career and finance. That's what this is about. That's what this is all about. This is about Creating My Life Vibrationally, a 15-week intensive self-development course in conjunction with the principles of Napoleon Hill. That's what this is. That's what it does. Okay? So this is where this is going to be available for everybody on the website. All the books that I just took you through, all of the information that I just took you through is so that you can learn how to get from level 1 through level 4. That's my goal for this year, is to go back through level 1 through level 4 training, retrain myself and continue to train myself and validate Napoleon's principle where he says the first great victory of the law of success philosophy was gained when it was used as a course in which 3,000 men and women were trained as a sales army, none of which have had any experience in the field of selling. And within the period of approximately 6 months, every one of the 3,000 men and women made over $1 million in 6 months. I believe that that's much easier to do today. And this year, I'm going to spend this entire year focusing on the development and validating that work in 2017. You are whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy, and you can be what you will to be. And I'm going to conclude this there and tell you guys that I will be back and finishing up the introduction, completing the introduction for the course, and I'm going to call it the Success Mastery, just like it's called with the Global Information Network. And we're going to master the Success Mastery course. I will see y'all back here on tomorrow morning, same time, 8 a.m. every single morning. I will bring to you the principles of success, starting at the beginning. Have a super fabulous day, and I will see you at the top. Goodbye, everybody.